One, two, three, and.
I'd like to introduce Mr. Yrneh Gabon Brown, and I'm going to allow you to introduce yourself. I was told many years ago that it was a super important thing to be able to describe myself using one sentence, a big challenge for me. So I'm going to pass that challenge along to you. Who are you?
To myself, I consider myself a dreamer, which is dangerous but unstoppable.
Wonderful. I
Yeah.
love it. I
So,
love it. And as an artist, I think I'm hoping you'll appreciate the next question, which is that Edgar Degas once said that art isn't what you see, but what you make others see. So what is it that you wanted people to see when we were visiting your exhibit, Visibly Invisible?
it was very important for me to have the viewers go on a journey with me through what I consider to be storytelling. The exhibition was it was designed specifically to take you through a number of years through different culture throughout the diaspora that really goes right back to Africa, dealing with people with albinism and the plight and the atrocity that faces people with albinism today. So it was very important for me to use story narrative to bring an audience to what I was feeling and hope that somewhere in there you get it, or if you don't get it, then you're able to grab your own from what I put out.
I think you did a brilliant job. It was one of
Thank you.
it was a really wonderful experience for us, and so I appreciate that. I think you did a bang up job at that.
Thank you so much.
One of the people that you mentioned in the exhibit, what I found particularly interesting, as did one of my children, and that was Yellow Man from your native Jamaica. Could you tell us a little more about him and what impact his life has had on the viewpoint of people, on those who are albino in Jamaica?
Well, 30 years prior to Yellowman, the prejudice and discrimination was at its peak. Maybe not as hunting and killing in East Africa or other parts, but surely discrimination, abandonment, and that kind of stuff, which is silent killing, which is like killing me softly kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yellowman himself was, when he was born, he was abandoned by his mother and left in a pile of garbage to die.
Oh.
And found by a garbage collector, and he grew up in several orphanages and was able at some point to somehow discover his own voice through an art form, musically. And that for me is just ties into the whole thing where I am actually about to start a campaign where art can save lives. Because of that voice that he had and his musical skill that he was able to bring to the forefront, that literally changed not only Yellowman lives, but it changed our culture. People was taken by his celebrity status. People were blown away. That's how he became the name Yellowman. You know what I mean? And over the world, he was this icon, this superstar who has come from nothing. He has come from orphanage. He has come from considered to be the scum of the society because they spot in people like Yellowman in my country prior to Yellowman fame. And he'll tell you that if you've seen some of the films that I've done on him talking about what his childhood has been like, and scornfully too. So I first saw the discrimination as a child, and I felt the seed was planted. And I, at some point, knew I had to do something, and it was this time that I think it was ready. So Yellowman for me is iconic. He uses art to change not only his own life, but to change a cultural belief and empower not only himself, but other people with albinism and parents who bear children with albinism. So for me, it's phenomenal. And to have him in my exhibition and pay homage to do a piece tribute to him, and also have him featured in several of the films that I make, and including the one they call them dundus, which is a derogatory term that they use for people with albinism in my country, is an honor. And he's still my hero in many ways. It's interesting thing is to look at Yellowman's life. Yellowman has a child who's presently, by now, should be an MD. Now, had that child not rescued from that pile of garbage, we would have lost a doctor.
Absolutely.
Right there, then.
Absolutely.
So it is so important what he has done, but I don't think Yellowman himself knows the monstrosity or just how much he has contributed to the culture. I don't think he does, because I've spoken to him and he's very light about things. So I do know that he hasn't thought about it enough, but he will at some point. He has not seen the show. I think, we couldn't schedule things with his manager and his agents and all these people, but he's totally aware of it. I had conversation with him on several times, but I'm hoping that moving forward will be the United Nations at some point, and that would be someplace that he'll be able rightfully, come and see the show that is also in honor of His Excellency and his fight for changing how people think about people with albinism.
Well, it was inspirational to be reminded of that feeling that people occasionally have at one person, what can they do? And it shows the impact of one man living his life in the best way he can and the broad reach that he has. So I think it was beneficial to us as viewers to be able to get a feel for who he is through you.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for that as well. You mentioned the ways in which your perspective had changed over your lifetime concerning albinism and those who were affected. What would you say in large this exhibit specifically added, or to the way you were molded, to the way you were changed? How were you affected by the process?
Well, first and foremost, I shackled. Well, I think this project really chose me in several ways, and one being is to be able to develop a piece based on an interview, a story, a visual I've seen, something that affect me. I felt that I wasn't affected before artistically to execute work. I went into the project as a research scholar because I was at USC when I started to really delve into the project to a very, for less of a better word, intense focus.
Okay.
I went into research, so it was more for me to go to Africa, speak to people there, go to Jamaica, talk to them, and talk to people here and stuff like that. So even though I knew I wanted to make some kind of art, I had no idea what I was going to do.
Right.
Because I was not faced with all the things that was able to inspire me to make the stories or to tell the story or to make the pieces that I want to. So that is kind of just was something like just going out and allow myself to be infused with information to the point where I am so just gutted that all I could do is regurgitate, you know what I mean? And that for me was just a new way of thinking about how I process information and what I do with the information once I process it. Where does it go? Do I have any control? No, I don't. I thought I did before, but no, I don't. I don't, because once I start doing that, I found that it's like legs and octopus. It's all over, and things are start traveling, and dialogues are start happening, and all that kind of stuff. And medium changes. I might want to tell a story by just a soundscape. Before, you probably talked to me or I read something, and that would not come to me until I was able to kind of just lock myself and be one with whatever that situation is within the project and the process itself. Some writings, like Pat Comper in London, who was a quite well-accomplished playwright who I've worked with for many years, because I come from a theatre and music background, of course. And something that somebody says to me in East Africa, and you have Words like there was a time when the news of death meant sadness in the hearts of man. But when the gangsters come, no one asks why anymore, but who is dead. That kind of poetry and lyrics and word, I can't see that into a bronze or on a painting, but I could hear that without seeing any visuals. So, so if you notice, I'm very interdisciplinary, multimedia, and that for this project more than anything else is because there were several unique stories were being told about the same issue, which is just how these people are, and they're told in different ways. That soundscape piece could never be done in bronze. It could never be done as a painting.
Absolutely.
But probably with somebody else, but I didn't see it or didn't hear
Mm-hmm.
it but I heard that piece as a soundscape, and I could feel what it makes me feel when I hear that piece, and that in itself is an art form.
Definitely.
So I have developed a greater appreciation for multimedia in my process now than I had before.
It was one of the things that we found as a family most impressive was the uniqueness of every tale being told in that they were told in different art forms. It gave you a feel for the individual struggle of each person. You know that everybody has a different story, and so I think that really came through.
Yeah, I
That really
appreciate
came
it.
through for us. So one of the questions, I've been dealing with Africa for many, many years, not just as an African, but in trading with women and discussing a lot of the issues that we face, and I find that one of those things that we in-house as Africans and the diaspora sort of struggle with is who has the right to discuss the issues, who belongs in the dialogue. And so when you were doing your research and when you were speaking with people on the ground and those outside as well, I know that you've spoken at the UN, and what do you say to those critics who say those outside of Africa or outside of the diaspora have no right to tell us about the way we live, about the way we practice our faith or our belief systems? How would you speak to that?
Well, I've always claimed Africa as the motherland. I did a piece in my show called Dear Mama, and it's a letter to Mother Africa. I don't know where my forefathers came from, but my heritage chains and shackles me to the continent. So I don't care what anybody wants to say. I think I have a voice, and I'm going to raise hell, high water. I'm going to use it. At the United Nations, it's a very interesting question, because at the United Nations, there were several countries who were part of the bill for June 13th being World International Albinism Day.
Mm-hmm.
And Tanzania weren't one of those countries. They weren't there.
Wow.
They were invited, but they felt they didn't have a problem, and their government did not felt it was in their best interest to be present. The main sponsor of the bill was Somalia. So I proposed this to the United Nations recently in doing the show. Like Ambassador Youssef, the late Youssef Bouré, who we just lost a few weeks ago, to terrorism in Mogadishu. I am not from Tanzania. I am not from the continent, but I am an African through diasporal connection. And I have the right, like anybody else. And if in my country, we can make that kind of change through art. Speaking of Yellowman's contribution, maybe that could be something that could be looked at and explored and examined and implement within the same culture. You give you a visibility to such a person, people will take note, and that can change. Don't close the door because you think that person doesn't know your culture. We all have some kind of African something in us. So I have always shunned and people who say that kind of thing is like, you don't know us, you can't say, oh yeah, but you don't know us, but if you need us to fight your battle, you're gonna come call us. That's it. People always get very defensive and protective of, culture in that way when it doesn't require you doing, when it requires you opening and seeing what's going on inside. But from the outside, welcome, come home, brother, come home, sister. You know what I mean? So I never listen to those. I call them surface people.
I
So I
I,
never.
I appreciate it. I remember once saying to someone in that kind of conversation that at the root we all come from the same place, and that is Africa. So so you're right. It's just how far removed we are, perhaps.
Yeah.
I often say to those around me, mother to one, mother to all, and I've always had a really soft spot for children. Um,
Yes.
it's important to me that we highlight during this dialogue what the specific challenges are to children who are facing albinism.
Well, as you can see, and you have seen in my exhibition, lots of children.
Absolutely.
Baby in the hand of a man, woman surrounded with children clinging on to them. In the film, children are speaking. In the belly, there's a child. You see children just about in so many pieces in my work because I do have the same soft spot and feel they are such a gift, so raw, so honest, so pure, and they are inspiration if we look at them. They are like that seedling that becomes the tree. And
Absolutely.
all it's needed is just nourishment and sunshine, and they can be to full potential. When you look at a piece called Crossing the Line, you see a bunch of children with albinism in a suitcase. Look like they're running or from something or whatever, but they're in a very vulnerable place. They're captured. And then there's a mother clinging onto her child, wailing. That's the kind of connection between mother and child. There's a lot of women also in the pieces because I feel women and children are the most vulnerable. And it's not women and children going about to do this kind of killing, are men. So it's specifically looking at how us men treat our mothers, because men don't give birth to children or life, period. We contribute, but we don't make the life. So when you kill a boy or a girl or a baby, just imagine you killing yourself from your own mother. So it's very important that you see elements and you see imagery of children throughout my exhibition, especially this one. And it's also very important for children to be present and to see and to have dialogue about this issue within my show.
Most definitely. Most definitely. I think one of the parts that I enjoyed the most was walking through with my daughters. And I know I think for many, they might hesitate understanding the content, but we say if children can live it, you can see it in order to express for them who can't express for themselves. So it was very nice to see so many pieces, as you mentioned, that focused and featured children and their role. So I've got one more, I guess, kind of touchy question. I know your character well enough to know you can take whatever I throw, so I'm not worried. But
Go ahead.
the,
Let's hear.
the question of labels, when we hear a lot, especially from the media outside, the language is often words about witchcraft and in a way of describing indigenous beliefs. And I know that globally speaking, those in Tanzania, for the most part, are Muslim or Christian. And so how do you feel language plays a role? Do you think that can make those in Tanzania defensive and maybe a little less likely to be willing to hear? Or how do you think the educational process should be done in a way that's culturally sensitive, yet firm?
I am as puzzled at this point. Even, and it's more recent, I was very confident that I think I had it down before, and then I realized I don't. because there's probably about over 200 and plus native tribal languages, and they're different tribes, and they all don't get along. They all do not get along, and that is kind of one of the major problems. Say, for example, I'll use this as example.
Mm-hmm.
I had a conversation with I'm going to go back to your question, but I want to make a point.
Absolutely.
I had a conversation with a New Yorker a few weeks ago in New York about how happy I was about Selma, the movie Selma. I have a very dear friend who is one of the supporting lead in Selma, Lorraine Toussaint, and supporter of what I do as well. And he was like, let me tell you, and he was African American. He went very off on the defense about David Oyelowo playing Martin Luther King and that kind of stuff. And he let me know how wrong it was for him to come from where he comes from and play this iconic figure, and it should be played by American. And I was like, well, the script was brought by David Oyelowo to Ava DuVernay, and it was something that he brought to the table. It wasn't like Ava DuVernay casted an African, British, Nigerian to play the part, and he would not hear it. And then I came back to LA, and I was having a conversation with another person, and she says, yeah, he's right. And I thought, whoa, whoa, whoa. It's like me going to Africa and speaking not from Tanzania and speaking on the subject. Maybe people would say the same thing. You need help, but you need me. And I see that happening a lot. You know, I mean, I am not tied to any NGO per se, but I know that there must be disagreements between several NGOs that deals with albinism with the locals, and everyone seems to be battling for some kind of ownership. Yes. When it's not about them. It's a phenomenon outside of everybody. And I kind of want to be that advocate for, don't let it be about you or a person, but about a situation. And that's how it is. If you look at any or other persons, a Caucasian person, when they come to this country and they play figures over the world, nobody's saying it's a German, it's a this. Nah, that's it. So I think within us, of people of color, we have a long way to go. The education needs to seriously begin about that same question that you just asked me, because I am like, kind of just taken away. A friend of mine did a movie called Bond, Perez Owino, Sibling Rivalry. You should see that movie. It's a documentary about African versus African American. And I was interviewed for it. And matter of fact, some of the footage that she used at the slave forge in Zanzibar was my footage that I brought back.
All right.
So I am just as baffled about that question you asked about ownership in terms of language and culture, even though you have the same shading of skin, or even any kind of difference in how people take ownership when it's not ever about them. So, that does trouble me a bit. And I'm now thinking there's another layer to this research, and I need to kind of start thinking about how I want to create this art based on what I'm discovering that I've never uncovered before when it comes to ownership. Because I was there, people were giving me information, and of course some people were telling me, don't talk to that person, or they can speak for me, they're from a different tribe. Oh, they're Wagogo. Oh, they're from this tribe or that tribe. And I didn't.
Classic Africa. Classic.
Yeah, I don't care about the tribe. I just want that kernel, and I want that kernel to speak to me. That's it. I want that seed to be that tree that is a tree and not a coconut tree or a mango tree. That's it. So I don't know. I'm just kind of just talking off the cuff what I feel, but it is something to be sorted out. How do we get beyond ourselves and language and even culture? To be able to make some kind of bridge that we all can walk on into some kind of empowerment for a situation just like this.
Though, in answering the question the way you did, I think you've also given an answer, and that is that it begins with dialogue. And so just the ability to have this kind of dialogue, and hopefully, the commentary that will come once this is posted from those all over the world that see it and enjoy sharing their own perspectives, it helps us all grow. So I think maybe that's just the beginning of the answer, is the ability to just talk. So
Yeah.
I think you may be aware at this point, there's one question that I've asked traditionally everyone who's ever sat at the table with me at the round table, and those kind enough like you to share your time and your talents with us, and that is, if you had a magic wand to wave over Africa, you were going to change just one thing, what would that one thing be for you?
Wow. To choose one thing. I never thought about one thing. But the one thing that I think I would change is how we educate ourselves today on a global level.
Brilliant answer. Brilliant answer. And it's always been of great interest to me to see that just like each of those that were featured or who inspired you in your exhibit brought their own story. I think we really do piece it all together with our magic wands. And so I'd like to thank you so very, very much for your time, Yrneh. You can't know how much you inspired me in just walking through. Sincerely, we've had much dialogue in my home with my friends, and I'm really hoping that this conversation will help to encourage others to continue that dialogue, because I think you're right. I'm kind of on your side with that. We're all one. And the struggle of one child in Tanzania is your struggle. It's my struggle. So thank you very, very much. And please keep me updated as to where that exhibit is going to be shared. It's my prayer that it becomes a global thing, and that people in London or wherever they happen to be are able to walk in and hold hands with their children and share the story as well.
It's my prayer as well. One of the things that I do ask is, I was having a dialogue today with a friend from Cameroon, and just to credit all the people, shoulders on which I stand are unable, especially CCH Pounder, and who has first literally told me that I'm going to help you make this project, from the endangered white to exhibition to catalog, all that stuff. That lady has been my angel, my shiro, and I swear to you, as easy as it looked to have an audience come in and just literally observe the work, that has been, for me, the biggest challenge and the biggest accomplishment ever, even now, because what folks don't understand, when it's out, it's somewhere, and for it to be somewhere, now, you think about it, it's made, and it costs quite a bit to get it to that place. Now, it's been stored. Until it moves, it's literally costing. So it's, however, in dialogue or ever in maybe some speaking engagement to kind of keep the exhibition together in the place, I'm totally open to speak and to have further conversation, maybe a catalog signing, something to kind of still be able to afford to keep the collection in one place and not having it stored in people's home, right, to take care of it. So that is something that I now have in my hand that I pretty much have to put out there, like, dude, this is costing you to even keep now that you have made it and shared it with the world.
And to keep the momentum moving. It's important to keep that momentum moving.
Absolutely.
I hope that anybody who is watching, if they have a contact, if there's someone that they know in their network that's able to do anything to keep the motion moving, it's really important. And so we will put them in contact with you if there is anybody that gets in touch with me, because it's something that's become close to my heart. We have a couple of weavers in Ghana who are affected by albinism, either themselves or their children. And it's funny that one of the things that strikes me most is, in doing an interview once with one of the women, she said, we ask these questions about how could your life be changed, and the first thing she said was, I want to get an education, I want to earn money so that my child can get an education, so that he can move forward and teach the world that being an albino means being a person. And above all of the other needs financially and the other struggles she had, that was her one major point in life. So I think of you, I think of those who touched you, I think of Yellow Man every time I see a basket woven by her. So you'll be with us in spirit, even if we don't talk often. And if there's anything else that you'd like to share that we haven't touched upon, you're welcome to do that now.
Yeah, just I have a link, Endangered White, and you probably could post my email information. I'm still fundraising because there's so much parts of this puzzle that there's still a larger audience that is waiting until it gets to, if it's already got to you, until it gets to somebody else, it's an expense to kind of keep it there. So I would like for you in your article to share the exhibition via video, if that's okay.
Most certainly.
Yeah, I will send you the link so one can see the caliber of show. The catalog is out. Go out and get the catalog. I don't make money from the catalog. It goes to the state, but when you get it and you read it, you'll have a better understanding of the plight of the people, and kind of just it might allow you to kind of just see yourself as one of these people inside this catalog. So that's my wish.
We will definitely include all of the links that you've provided for me. They'll be below under the video, and I really encourage people to do something. As Yellow Man showed us, any of us could be the next great thing, and so
absolutely, that's it right there. Absolutely.
I really appreciate your time. I look forward to getting together with you in person again at some point. And thanks again, Yrneh. It really means a lot to us. Thank you, my brother.
I appreciate it, sister. Have a great one.
Take care. You too.
Peace.
Visibly Afrika, maluphakamiso tumonwayo, izwa imitha